What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about 7 chords, or some people might call them dominant 7 chords. And this is another structured practice video, which basically takes one chord, goes through all 12 keys in an exhaustive manner, which means we don't miss any along the way. So if you know a few of these but not all of them, this still might be a good video for you to just make sure you know them in all 12 keys. Anytime we learn a new thing on the piano, it's a good idea to take it through all 12 keys to make sure we're staying up to par with the expectation of piano players, which the bar is high, right? There's some great piano players out there. So if you want to be able to hang, a lot is expected of keyboard players these days, right? Okay, so take a C chord and we're gonna make a C7. So how do we do this? Well, there's two ways we can think about it. You could put the 7 on the top or the bottom. A 7 is basically adding a 4th note to this triad. So in this case, I'm actually gonna start below. So you could take your major chord as our starting point, and we're gonna go down a whole step from your root. So here's your root, down a whole step, and that is a C7 chord. Okay, it has a slightly different sound than just your major chord. It's adding a little bit more tension there, a little bit aggressive. The other way you can do it is you can put it on the top of the chord. So if you go up an octave, here's your octave above your root, and go down a whole step from there. So up an octave, down a whole step, and that's another way to make a 7 chord. Now this one sounds a little bit more in your face because that note is sort of the dissonant note. Whereas if you hide it on the bottom, it's a little bit more subtle, just a little bit, right? The top note is always going to stand out more, whatever your chord is. So in this case, for this example, we're going to just put it on the bottom of the chord. So your left hand, you can actually kind of keep doing what we've been doing with the 1 and the 5 of whatever chord we're on. So if it's the C chord, C and G, and that is our C7. Let's take it through all 12 keys, okay? So F chord, we're gonna make it F7. We're gonna add a note that's a whole step below our root. And we get that sort of dissonant sound, but that's okay. Quick theory lesson. The reason why we call it the dominant 7 is sort of another name for the chord. Obviously on a chord chart, it's just going to be called F7, right? Just plain Jane 7. But some people you might hear call it a dominant 7. If we go back to the key of C as an example, each chord within the C scale has a name for it. Like if for the music theory people out there, we know that the 1 is another name for it is the tonic, and then the 5, another name for that is called the dominant. And within the key of C, you know, every chord that we make has to be within these white notes, basically, because that is the key of C if we want to stay diatonically within the key. So therefore, the 5 chord, or the dominant chord, the 7 that we're going to use is the whole step below the root. And this is the only sort of diatonic chord that uses this type of 7, so that's why we call it the dominant 7, okay? Because this type of 7 is only used on the dominant chord if we're staying within the scale, okay? So that's kind of a little bit of a music theory rabbit hole that we just went down, but that is sort of why another name for this 7 chord is called the dominant 7. So if we go back to the F chord, that's our F7 right there. Okay, let's keep going. B flat, we know how to make the major chord by now, right? So we're going to add a whole step below the root, and that's our B flat 7 chord, or dominant 7 chord, right? E flat 7, great sound, right? Leads us to A flat. Okay, good. And in fact, this is kind of a great little musical sequence here. So the A flat 7 actually does want to go and resolve to the D flat chord. So that's kind of nice that this is working out this way. So D flat 7 would be a whole step below the root. So there's our D flat 7 chord to the G flat chord. Major, we know how to make that chord. To add the 7, we're going to go to below. Or we could put it up an octave, right? That's still a G flat 7 chord. It's still the E. It's just that that one sounds a little bit more aggressive. This one sounds a little bit more under control, right? Let's go to the B chord next. So here's our B chord. And we're going to do the 7, which is a whole step below. And that's what we're looking for. That's the sound, right? How about an E chord? We could go up an octave and then down a whole step, and that would give us that sort of aggressive one. Or we can just go down from the root, and that's our E7 chord to an A. How about an A7? And that's even a good little movement. Sometimes you can do a little chromatic walk to get there when you're trying to add it, right? There's a lot of that's an old school sound, isn't it? How about a D7? That's it. G7. There's our G7 chord, back to our C. Beautiful. Okay, if this is valuable for you, I actually have a Church Piano 101 course where I take you from not knowing anything about the piano. So if you're at the beginning of your piano journey, this would be a great course for you to take, and it gets you all the way to possibly being able to play in church if you follow each lesson and learn all the things that we talk about in each lesson. It's 10 lessons that are about half an hour each, and it really gets you from not knowing anything to kind of getting to that point of being able to play in church, feeling confident enough to do that, if you take the amount of practice that's required, of course. That's linked below. You can check out the first lesson for free, and then after that, it's up to you if you want to continue on to buy it, if it's your learning style and all of that good stuff. But you can check out the first lesson completely free if you click the link below. All right, time to play through all of these 7 chords. 80 BPM, we'll start with C7. 1, 2, here we go. F7, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B, E, A, D, G, back to C. And that is your playthrough of the 7. So that's the key, that's the test to see if you know all of them, you know the shapes, you can get to them, you can identify them quickly if they show up on a chord chart, what they look like, and then you're good to go. If you'd like a PDF that kind of just explains a little bit more about the 7 chords, you can download that linked below. That just gives you a visual to kind of give you a reminder of how to make these 7 chords. So now that you've conquered all of your 7 chords, it's time to go to the next video, which would be the next type of 7 chord. But happy practicing, and we hope to see you in the next video.